Oi, oi, I'm Dave, A.K.A. Cheltmental, and I'm here this week in place of Kate Tracey to host this week's show, which has once again kindly been sponsored by Bet UK. I'm joined by top tipsters Andrew Mount and Daryl Carter, who are going to give us their thoughts and fancies for the weekend. They will be including their best bet at the end of the show, and you will also be able to see every single selection given by Andrew and Daryl on a nice little infographic up on the screen, so it's well worth hanging around for. Plus, I'm particularly keen on one myself, so make sure you stick around to find out who that is. Last week, the team were in great form. Saga and Live the Dream were near misses at 8-1 and 9-1, respectively. However, Andrew stole the show. With High Royal, we finished second at 125-1 in the 2,000 guineas. Plus, he also gave us the winner in the opener, Azure Blue, who won the Kilbington Stakes. This week's action is mostly Ascot and Lingfield. Ascot has the Heritage Handicap Victoria Cup. The latter plays host to an Oaks and Derby trial, which produced the winner of the races proper back in 2019. However, it has been switched to the all-weather, so we won't be covering Lingfield in this episode, but Darren and Andrew will have plenty of selections for those meetings on their column. We've also got the Swinton at Haydock. So you might be surprised to see me here being a jumps boy, but that's on here, so we've got a bit of something for everyone in here. Ordinarily, like I say, we'd be covering the ITV races on the show, but with Lingfield switch, and we're just going to focus on 3 at Ascot, 3 on Haydock. So we'll also cover any other selections that we fancy too. Please get involved by making sure you like the video, subscribe to the channel, comment below with your best bet of the weekend, or just to drop in and say hi, or just to let Kate know how much you're missing her. Right, let's crack on, gentlemen. I've done the intro. Daryl, the 1:30 at Ascot is the Class 3, 1 mile 4 handicap. Who do you like?
Yeah, it's a tricky race, Dave. Welcome to the show, by the way. Nice to have you on. Nathaniel Green heads the market here for William Haggis. Very, very interesting horse. Got some nice pieces of form from last year. He actually beat the subsequent St Ledger third at Haydock on soft ground, so he won't mind conditions. Should just say that Ascot is soft on the straight course and there's soft heavy in places on the round course, so it's going to be pretty testing. A bit more rain to come, I think, due to on my forecast. Look, I'm going to side with Savvy Knight. I thought this horse caught the eye at Kempton. They stuck the cheek piece on him 3 times last year and he just ran no sort of race. It just never travelled in the headgear, and I'm just willing to forgive those. He is unproven a little bit on, well, he is completely unproven really on soft or testing ground, but he doesn't do anything quickly. He's a real slogger and he's just a real stayer. And I think that this soft ground will actually help him. Now, you look at his Doncaster run last year, he was well behind Sarumi, but again, that was in the headgear. So I would just forgive that. Promising comeback at Kempton last time. He ran really well behind Secret State here. Went very, very keen in the King George. He's off a mark of 88. Harry Davies takes off £3. I think he's well handicapped. I don't think a lot of these are going to like the ground. So I'm going to take a chance with Savvy Knight.
Superb. Savvy Knight for Daryl in the 1:30 then. Andrew, how do you see the race?
I see it as a complete and utter minefield, Dave. And yeah, I echo Daryl's sentiments. Welcome to the show. You're doing a good job so far. You haven't sworn yet, so that's a 5-year Daryl. But I mean, even some of these who've got got form on soft ground like Nathaniel Green, you're not entirely convinced that they really need it. I mean, Nathaniel Green did win on soft ground at Haydock last season, but then because he bombed out completely on a heavy surface in the November handicap at Doncaster, he's 5-1. He's got beaten 36 lengths by Metier. Sarumi won at Epsom last time, but he was always towards the outside of the track, towards the near side rail where the better ground was. So was he flattered? Possibly. High Five was interesting. First run for Harry Fry, first run since gelded. Horses who've been newly gelded or recently gelded done quite well in this race over the years. Wanda Montalban was having his second start after being gelded when winning last year. Appeared one for Roger Varian's first run after, I was going to say having his knackers off, but we'll keep it clean. First run after the cruelest of all cuts in 2017. But looking at his form, you just worry about the ground as well. But he has been withdrawn from 1 or 2 intended starts recently, I think, because of the ground. So if they run High Fibre, I think I'll go with him, assuming they're not going to waste his first run on unsuitably slow ground. There's plenty of these look like they need quicker ground or sheer rocks. I mean, Savvy Knight, Daryl's pick, did bomb out on its sole start on this sort of surface, but it's just one run. The fact they're running him again suggests there were excuses that day, so it's really tricky. But yeah, tentative on High Fibre, first run for Harry Fry.
Superb. So because it is flat race, and I'm going to keep my trap shut until the Swinton, but honestly, I've got an absolute banker in there. So for the first race, the 1:30, Daryl's tipping up Savvy Night, Andrew's tentative selection on High Fibre. But we will move on to the 2:05. I'm going to stick with Andrew. We haven't got to worry about any knackers coming off in this because it's a fillies handicap over 1 mile. It's a Class 2. Where do you see this going, Andrew?
Yeah, there's a couple of interesting angles with this race. I've sort of been down the rabbit hole with this in previous years. And horses who ran in Class 1 company last time out have got a good record, winning 5 of the last 10 renewals from a small number of runners. And, you would have generally got yourself through the place spot. I think it's something like the last 10 years or the last 9 years by just siding with those horses. There's only a couple this time around, and both are big prices. I think it's Montes Font for Ewan Morrison, who was down the field behind Remarquee at Newbury last time, and Don't Tell Claire for the Kubler team, who was running in a listed race at Kempton last time, finishing 6th in the first time cheap pieces. Perhaps her patient style wasn't ideal that day and maybe needed a run to get used to the headgear. So the last time she ran here was on good for soft ground, finished 2nd to Crystal Caprice. So I thought Don't Tell Claire had a squeak. She's 14-1. And of those who didn't run in Class 1 races last time out, I think you've got to be looking at One Morning for the Michael Bell team, really because of the running style as well. Last time out, this was back in September of last year, she was ridden patiently, finished 3rd to Laurel at Kempton. I mean, Laurel was winning easily that day, was odds on. But of course, she's run well in group and listed companies since and is rated a lot higher. You look at the other horses who came out of that race and have run since. There's been quite a few who've won at least once since. So it's a race that worked out pretty well. And even though she was only 3rd, beaten 3.5 lengths, could have been 7 if they pressed the button on the winner. I thought One Morning. So I'll go split stakes. Don't Tell Claire, 14-1 I've seen, and One Morning at 10-1.
Superb. Daryl, in agreement, or you got something else?
Yeah, no, I excuse me. I am in agreement with One Morning. Yeah, they had a Group 1 entry for this. This horse is a 3-year-old, but she didn't run for the rest of the season. So I'm assuming that something was maybe a miss with her, but she's definitely got more to come. She's rated 82 on a handicap debut here, and there's got to be more to come from her. She steamed home at Kempton. That was a really steadily run affair as well. The clock suggests that she was much the best of those in behind Laurel really that day. But I do think the horse that finished 2nd, Pure Dignity, I think that's a promising horse for Roger Varian as well. So like Andrew, I think that race is going to work out well. I quite like her for this. I think the rating is very, very fair. I went through her breeding just to check about the ground. She's by Glen Eagles. There shouldn't be too much concern about the ground. She's bred for sort of middle distance trips as well, so stamina is definitely layered in there. She actually won at Newmarket on the 12th of May last year in a race that turned into a 2-furlong dash. So shows she's definitely got some ability there. If she's straight and ready to go first time up, yes, she could be very, very well handicapped. I thought the other one to be of interest was Julia Augusta for Roger Varian. Went off a very strong 6-4 favourite on handicap debut, just touched off by Morgan Ferry. I think Andrew tipped that horse that day actually, and it was a really good race. State Occasion finished 2nd. They were the first 3 were about a length separating them, but State Occasion is now rated 103, something 14 pounds higher. The winner, Morgan Ferry, I don't know how that's still on 89. That's a very well handicapped horse when she reappears. It was just a very strong race, and to go from sort of a first novice where she just made all the running, did her own thing, up into a competitive race like that on her next start, I thought was quite impressive. So I think she could have more to come. She's off 300 days. The ground again is a slight unknown for her, but it seems as Andrew's going to split stakes. I'll split stakes between those two.
Superb. So it's Don't Tell Claire and One Morning for Andrew, and it's Julia Augusta and One Morning for Daryl. Both for Daryl's are 4-year-olds, interestingly enough. And I did quickly look at the race. I think 10 of the last 11 have been 4-year-olds in here. So
yeah, I did look at that stat, but there was no statistical correlation because basically most of them were 4-year-olds. So
yeah, there's only been 11 3-year-olds to run in the race. They've won once and placed multiple times, so no negative for a 3-year-old in here. I don't think they did. What do they get weight for age allowance wise? They get £13. So I did think that as well, Dave. But I don't think there's too much correlation. But cue a 4-year-old winner, please.
All right, fine. Well, I've been put in my place there. Normally, I can say stuff and the people aren't good enough judges to be able to come back at it. I'm going to keep my trap shut. We have got an absolute beauty of a race. Will be you coming to it first, Daryl, but I would imagine that Andrew's quite excited for this one. It's a heritage handicap. It is the Victoria Cup. It's the 240 at Ascot. It's over 7 furlongs. We are treated to an absolute feast. There are 23 runners in this race. I'm sure there'll be extended places galore out there with some of the bookies. Daryl, can you whittle it down? Can you give me something in here that's going to win the Victoria Cup, please?
I don't know. I'm gonna back 3, so I don't know if that helps. Look, 4-year-olds have had a good record in this race. I think Andrew, correct me if I'm wrong there, but I think they have got a good record. Tylos is the first horse that catches my eye at 25-1. I think this horse has got loads more to come. He bolted up in a small 4-runner field at Leicester on heavy ground last time, just making all his own running. Now, the time wasn't great and the favourite disappointed, but that was his first switch back to turf for quite some time. Previous to that, he had run here at Ascot, chasing home Alflalia, who just rocketed up the ratings last year and ended up being a group winner by the end of the year. A Group 3 win over Ottoman Fleet, who's obviously pretty smart himself. I think this horse is very unexposed, and it's got some very, very, very nice 2-year-old form. I can imagine things haven't been straightforward with the horse, but the cheek piece has gone on for the last 3 starts. He's fit and well, and I think he looks a bit of cut in the ground. The fact that he's drawn in 19, I mean, obviously we'll get more about the draw tomorrow, but the fact that he's drawn 19, I think is going to be a blessing to him, because we've got 23 runners in this field, but I do think he likes to sort of have a bit of space around him, and I think that could be key to him. I don't know if he's a little bit soft, but he does like to have a little bit of space around him, and I think if he can stay over that far side by the rail, I think he'll go very well. He's around 25-1. Spycatcher is a horse that I really like. Again, Andrew tipped this horse last time to win at Thirsk. I just think he's a group horse running in the handicap, to be honest with you. He's off 106. Pierre-Louis Jamin takes off 3, so effectively off 103 here. But I do think that the horse is a very, very capable horse in his day. I think he loves soft ground. I think he's unexposed at 7 furlongs. He's got a good record fresh, but he's got just a good record second time out as well. He was second in the A.K.A. second time out, third to Rohan on his second time out of previous season, and then was unlucky in a conditions race, and then second to Highfield Princess. Like, it's some of the strongest sprinting form around, and I do think the horse wants 7 furlongs. I do think he wants soft ground, and I do think he's perhaps a group horse in a handicap. So regardless of the weight, we saw Migration win the Lincoln the other week off a big weight. I do think these top weights can go well in this contest. So he'd be one. And then I'm just going to have a saver on a Safe Voyage, because I'm going off the cliff with him. Really, everyone knows what I think about Safe Voyage. So I won't bore you too much with him.
Superb. Before we move on to Andrew, I'm pretty sure you tipped up Admiral D on last week's show. I'm surprised you've not given a word for him. So do you have a line for him?
Well, he's just frustrating me. Like, I can see, like, if you just watch his last couple of runs, you would say, my God, this horse needs to step up to 7 furlongs. But if you watch all of his runs, you'd think he needs a mile, then he needs 7, then he needs 6, then he needs a strongly run 6. And to be honest with you, I'm just getting a bit fed up with him, Dave. But sod law, he'd probably bolt up now. Why, do you fancy him?
Not really, but it's like I said, I thought you were fairly keen. I think a couple of other judges mentioned him for last week. You touched on the 4-year-old bit, said there was 3 horses. I cannot believe he wasn't one mentioned, but you've said a word on him now. Who knows? Andrew might be tipping him up. Andrew, who do you fancy? Are you going to go for 3 or more darts?
I mean, Admiral D was one of several I bet in that Newmarket race last week on the first time cheap pieces angle for Richard Fahey. I did have a good look at him afterwards and have come to the conclusion that he needs a small field. You look at his in-running comments. You get not clear run, hampered, switched, and it just seems he needs complete daylight in this race. You then get suckered in thinking, oh, they could split into 2 or 3 groups. They might end up with just a handful of rivals, but Yeah, I think I'll be looking for him to, run in a 6 furlong race at sort of 9 runners. He's the kind of horse you might appreciate stepping up in class to listed or group level because he's more likely to get a small field. He also ran over 6 last time and is stepping up to 7 in the Victoria Cup. 42 horses have stepped up from sprint races in this race in the last 10 years. All 42 were beaten, which is a bit of a concern. On the age front, it's like 6 winners of the last 10 for 4-year-olds. The betting said there should have been about 4.5, so it's they do outperform their odds. But it's tricky again because look at last year's renewal. We haven't sort of talked about the draw a great deal. Massive advantage to be drawn high last year. Stalls 27, 26, and 28, the first 3 home. Just perming the top few would have copped you a trifecta of over 5,000 quid. Ropey Guest ran really well in that race, finishing 5th from stall 6, winning the race down the centre. Fresh was 4th from stall 13, but he was switched to the near side. So if Ropey Guest's draw in stall 4 is not too bad, he looks very interesting first time out. I mean, last year when on his final start, he ran 4th on the rolling mile over a mile. First 3 were up with the pace throughout basically, and he did best of the closers. So as long as that low draw is not insurmountable, he'd have a chance. Ross Colin was quite interesting for David O'Mara, second run after a wind-up. Now he's had a wind-up before, got well beaten first time back after the surgery, last of 7. Second time out, finished second by half a length at 40-1. And he ran in that Rainbow Fire Haydock race last time out, where basically you couldn't win from off the pace. It was Guido went off like a scalded cat, ended up finishing second. Rainbow Fire was always up there. Biggles, the third, was prominent. And it was like Montacid, the favourite. Haggis horse in 4th, who was the eye catcher. Boardman in 5th, he did well to come from off the pace. He's running it in the opener at Chester on Friday. So there was a few in there who sort of caught the eye. And I thought Ross Colin, first time out, first time after a wind-up, maybe all roads lead to Ascot for this one. So yeah, I was like Ross Colin, a Ropey Guest, but they're both drawn low, and so we're sort of guessing at the moment as to where you want to be on the track. But I'll split stakes between that pair. But Baradar's a fair enough favourite. Because last time out he ran in the Lincoln from a poor low draw. He was switched towards the near side before staying on. But you look at 8 horses have run out of the Lincoln who were drawn in the bottom half. 7 of them have improved their rating post ratings next time out by up to £29. So there's a good chance. Back at 7 furlongs, the trip he won over at Doncaster on his debut for George Bowie after leaving Johnny Murter. First time tongue tied, 5-year-old. So perhaps not ideal on the stat front, but I thought he'd a solid enough favourite, but then he's 7-1. Can be bothered to back him at that sort of price in this sort of race. So I'll take a chance. Ross Colin and Ropey Guest, but Ropey Guest, the horse, he struggles to win, but he does know run some good races at Ascot at big prices, and he could be 2nd, 3rd, or 4th.
Superb. So it's 3 from Daryl, Tyler, Spycatcher, Safe Voyage, 2 from Andrew, Ropey Guest, and Ross Collin. We're going to move ourselves up north. We're going to go to Haydock. There are 3 races we're covering now. The first one of these 3 is a Class 2 condition stake over 6 furlongs. Andrew, I'm going to come back to you on this one. Who do you like? Small fields.
Give me a clue. Is it the 245? Sorry.
Oh, sorry, 245. Yeah, sorry.
Right, I mean, if you were just looking at racing post ratings, you'd look at Creative Force, but then you look behind that and think, well, hang on a minute, how come this sort of, horse who was flying high in Group 1 company a couple of seasons ago is now running in a lowly Class 2 conditions contest, having been chinned at odds of 13-8 on his comeback at Newmarket last month. So, he's now lost several in a row, and most at short prices. So I'm quite happy to take him on. There was 2 that were interesting. Comanche Falls, the one I put up against him that day, he was second by a head or a neck at 20-1, whatever it was. He's 2 from 3 at this track. The only defeat came when he was drawn on the wrong side of the track. He wanted to be far side. He was down the near side. So I thought Comanche Falls was the obvious one. I've not seen any prices, so I'm not sure whether I'm going to back him or Run to Freedom or both of them. Now, Run to Freedom, I mean, he finished in front of Creative Force when second to Kinross on Champions Day. 150-1 that day. It was a huge effort, a massive price. And he's only had 4 runs over 6 furlongs below group company. First, second by a head, and first. So this is his kind of grade. He's got form in small field tactical races. He won the 3-runner affair at Salisbury last summer. ground wise, maybe he's not going to want it as soft as it was likely to be. He's never run on anything quicker than good to soft. But again, it all comes down to the price in the end. Hopefully they'll go odds on Creative Force. The lazy odds compilers will just look at the ratings, and we'll get prices about the others in the race. So yeah, I'll go Run to Freedom over Comanche Falls at this stage. I won't put 2 up, given there's only 4 runners.
Super. Run to Freedom for Andrew. Daryl, I mean, it's a pretty small field with just the 4 runners. It will be win only. But I feel like this is a bit of you. You got to have one you fancy in here, surely.
Well, yeah, it's a very competitive race, Dave. Like it really is. Like this is Comanche Falls is in here, but like this is not really good placing from Michael Dodds really, because he saddles a penalty for his Stewards Cup win last year. This is a race where if you haven't won a Group 1 or Group 2 pattern race after May 31st, and you saddle a penalty or a Class 2. So I wouldn't say this is great placing by him, but in terms of Creative Force, I would say this is clever placing by Charlie Appleby, albeit he wouldn't be in this if he had won last week. I don't think he loves Newmarket. Now, he's won 3 of his full starts there, but I don't think Creative Force loves Newmarket. I don't think he likes the dip. I never thought he had like the dip. I think away from Newmarket, he's got a great record. And I don't know. Yeah, like Andrew said, it depends on what they do with the prices. If they do stick him in at odds on, then I'm quite happy to take him on, because I think it's far closer than that. I like Run to Freedom, who finished ahead of him on his final start last season. He basically outstayed him in the champion sprint, I thought. But that might have been the fact that Creative Force had, a couple of tough races before that. I think I think Comanche Falls is probably going to be the pace angle. I think if it gets a little bit tactical, I think that'll be to a disadvantage of Tibber Flow. So in these small fields, it does all depend on price, especially with this 4, because they've met so many times on so many sort of different tracks and ground and stuff. So price is very much key here. But I would be favouring Creative Force and Run to Freedom at the moment, but again, depends on price.
Superb. So let's move on, right? We've had the selections for the flat races. We have got the Swinton at Haydock. I get to voice my opinion, so you can all get back for the next 10 minutes while I make my case.
I'll put the kettle on.
It's a Class 1 Premier Handicap hurdle. It's thrown in the beginning of the flat season. I absolutely love it. And it's one that in the past I've done all right in. This year, lots of people would have seen it from the market anyway. There's horses towards the front of it. Charles Burns obviously got a nice fine yesterday, didn't he, for some lackluster race riding. So it's anyone's guess what any of his horses are going to do. Probably doesn't necessarily deserve to be as short as he is, but you can see why he's fancied. Same for Brentford Hope as well. Harry Derham flying on his first season. I know he's going into his second now, but looks like a horse that should suit this type of race. However, the bookies have made an absolute rick in how they priced. I'm going to wait for your reactions. The Ollie Murphy train, Washington. Because Washington absolutely bolts up in here, I think. This is a horse that last season, at the beginning of last season, was running in Grade 2 at Cheltmental behind I Like to Move It, who's now rated 154. That horse did progress as a hurdler. Even if you go back to his bumper form, he beat Marble Sands, that's now like a 130s horse. He's got some back form. And I know it's risky to always take a horse's chance on what they've run behind before, but even That's All Right Gino's turned into an almost 150s chaser, and he was behind him just after he ran against I Like to Move It before. I think this horse has got a big one in him, and I think Ollie Murphy's been quite smart. He won this race 2 years ago with Coppolis. He had cheap pieces on for the first time at Aintree the last day. He actually ran in that conditional race at Aintree the year before as well, behind Hacker to Places. He was maybe 3 lengths behind him, I think. But that Hacker to Places won at Cheltenham on Trials Day. That's rated 141 now. It's £8 higher than when Washington got fairly close to him at Aintree. They have tried him on a hood earlier this season, and that headgear didn't seem to work. But I think they found the key now with the cheap pieces. They are retained. He stays on the same mark of 124. He was 3rd at Aintree the last day. He was beaten quite a considerable distance, but then I think the winner just flew. This horse made a couple of mistakes as well. There are some other horses in this race that are in there, like Paramount, that was very well backed, and it's got potentially excuses, and Nibiru for Tony Martin, who looks like a horse who's very inconsistent, but you could see him having bits of chances. I just can't believe this horse is a 14-1 poke. He is miles better than 124. And regardless of the fact that I'm on here, I would be putting some sort of tweets or some sort of content out to say, It's fifth of the odds, 5 places. We might get some expenditure somewhere else, but there is no way there are 5 horses better than Washington in this race. So he's absolute banker for place money. So I will be going muggy each way, but it's a strong nap. Washington in the Swinton. I don't know that we need to go to either of you two, but I guess the viewers would like to know. I'm going to chuck it straight back to Andrew. You might have some stats for the Swinton.
Well, I've got some stats for Washington because he's a horse that I put up as a strong each way bet at Aintree last time out, because he's always one that I've had down as a big field horse. He tends to pull hard in his races. That's why they put the hood on a few runs ago. He needs them to go like the absolute clappers. And when he finished second to the Progressive Playful Saint at Leicester, it was, fairly steadily run. 9 runners didn't suit him, and he's just plodded on to finish second. So you look at he hasn't had many opportunities in big fields, and everything looked right for Aintree last time out. And again, he was 20-1 when we first talked about him, and he's got off 10-1 on the day. And what have they done? They've gone round the inside where the ground was slow. You watch the replay of that race. Punctuation for Fergal O'Brien, 40-1 shot. It's come right round the outside as wide as possible. As has the runner-up, the Nichols horse, Blue King Daru. And you just, even though when he was treading short and running, you thought he's on the wrong part of the track, and needless to say, he's faded out of it late on. So I think he'll run a big race. So I'm totally in agreement with you. I've bet him each way. Of those at the head of the market, I didn't mind Biker after that Cheltenham run. You look at that race, I think something like 7 of the first 8 came from off the pace. This was because in the Boodles, the Fred Winter, and I thought he did really well to finish second by a neck. But like you say, trying to second guess what Charles Burns' yard's going to do is not ideal. 5-1 each way, probably not going to be up the first 5, but can you be bothered? Brentford Hope, I mean, since he's gone to a proper trainer, he's done really well. I mean, he used to be a fantastic lay-in running when he was trained by Richard Hughes, because he'd always seem to cruise and then find one to beat him. And so now he's gone to Harry Derham. He's a different horse, finishing off his races properly. But yeah, I'm with you on Washington. So stuck him up each way last time. We'll do so again. Except if he's 7-2 from 14-1 by the time this goes out.
Definitely, but that's the thing. Like, it's not always a price thing. But I can't believe that he's the price it is. I could make a case for him to be half the price, regardless of the fact that it's a big field handicap. Daryl, can you make it the perfect 3? Washington wins, right?
Well, I have bet him as well. I backed him, but I was really strong on him last year at Aintree, and to no avail. And then I backed him at Ascot back in October on seasonal return. I thought, Jesus, I thought he was so well handicapped. But yeah, I don't know if it's a good thing or a bad thing that all 3 of us agree on this horse. But I backed him along with a Lunar Sovereign for Dan Skelton, who thought shaped quite nicely on return from a sort of a long layoff, maybe an injury at Chepstow. Made a real sweeping move before sort of flattening out towards the finish. But not quite sure why Kate's Kieran is on and not one of Dan's usual riders. But I backed the 2. I didn't like really anything in the race. I thought that Nibiru was the best horse in the race, but it's very worrying that he bombed out at Aintree, and that was his first trip across the pond to race over here. So maybe he didn't like the travelling or whatnot, but if he bounced back to form, it'd be very tough to beat. But yeah, Washington and Lunar Sovereign each way for me.
Superb. Just to finish up on that Nibiru, Tony Martin said after the race that he blamed the outcome on the fact that he's just a very inconsistent horse. So
yeah,
so again, suspicious, but it's similar to Paramount, wasn't it? That was well supported. They sometimes would leave that race and then that would be done for the season, wouldn't it? They are both pursuing it. So I think Paramount and Nibiru probably didn't show their best run at Aintree, probably can do, but it's still not enough to beat Washington. So it's a clean sweep for Washington. And then Daryl's just going to stick a little forecast in with Lunar Sovereign. We're on to the last featured race that we'll be covering, which is the 350 at Haydock. This is a Class 1 listed race. It's the Spring Trophy stakes over 7 furlongs. Daryl, who wins this?
Well, I'm very, very hopeful. I haven't seen any prices yet, but I'm eagerly awaiting them because I think Angel Blur wins this. I quite like this horse. The dropping grade is a big positive for him. Soft ground, or it is drying at Haydock, but you know, you spit on Haydock, can't you? It'll be soft. But 7 furlong soft ground is absolutely ideal for him. He's 4-5 on soft ground. I've always had him down as a rock solid Group 2 horse, but not quite making the sort of the grade, even though he has run well in Grade 1 company, particularly last year in the Sussex Stakes behind Baid. I thought he was pretty eye-catching. He's run at in St Cloud last time. He just pulled far too hard. He pulled the arms off Ryan Moore for the entire contest, but he actually, instead of sort of falling out the back of the telly, he actually picked up again in the closing stages. So I do think he's coming to the boil. I thought he did remarkably well at Wolverhampton the time before, chasing home Berkshire Shadow as well. I'm very, very hopeful that he'll go very, very close here. This is a drop in grade for him. He's had the Wizard of Eye in behind twice. I do like that horse, and I do think that horse does want 7 furlongs. But I'm hoping that they're going to frame this market around Al Mubir for William Haggis, who I thought was flattered at Leicester on the front end. I compared it to the 10 furlong race later on the card, and he was just so flattered by his positioning. And I don't think he does anything quickly, and I think he'll be run off his feet in this. But given it's an unexposed William Haggis horse, I think that they're probably going to put him towards the head of affairs. So we'll see what happens. The only one I kind of fear is Escobar, because if Angel Blur does tug his way to the front and is uncontrollable, and the Wizard of Eye is trying to get up there as well and trying to make the pace, it could set up for Escobar. But his run on Seasonal Return at Thirsk was very sort of dismal, and there wasn't really much promise in it. So yeah, I'm probably going to have a reverse forecast with Escobar, or a straight forecast Escobar to beat Angel Blur, but Angel Blur is definitely going to be the bet.
Nice. Andrew, how do you see the race?
Tricky, very tricky indeed. I mean, Escobar's last 3 wins have come in very big fields, but then you're sort of guessing as to what the pace angle is going to be. There are a few who can make the running. Say Al Mubir was up there when, like Daryl said, probably flattered at Leicester. The Wizard of Eye can go from the front. Holquin will probably make the running, I would have thought. The Baldwin runner, who had High Royal behind when runner-up at Newmarket last time. Although you watch the replay of that race, I think the headwind had dropped by that stage, and the winner and second were pretty much in the van throughout, and it was the horses who came from off the pace who looked like they wanted their runs upgraded. Angel Blue, again, he could go from the front, or probably more likely just track them. Mum's Tipple's the one I don't really want to be with, really, given the his overall record on turf. So yeah, I'll sit it out, particularly not having seen any prices. Maybe the Wizard of Eye, given he's trained by Stanmore, he does tend to go off a bigger price than he should do. I think I'll bet that one in the Guineas actually last season. After he'd caught the eye once or twice at very big prices, although he probably would prefer it quicker. So yeah, the Wizard of Eye for me, for the sake of this video, just to say I've tipped something up, but I've not had a bet, and I probably won't.
Superb. So back on that, Daryl, obviously prices aren't up at the moment, but they should be by the time the video goes out. Where's your line in for Angel Blur?
What do you mean, where's my line in? Oh, what price line? Sorry.
Yeah.
I'm very hopeful to get 3 to 1. I'll be very hopeful to get 3 to 1, but 11 or 4 or bigger is a bet for me.
Happy days. Right, so that does cover the 6 races that we talked about, the 3 at Ascot, the 3 at Haydock. Maybe we'll do a hands up. Has anyone got anything else this weekend that they need to tell the viewers about? No hands up. So now we just move on to naps. Nap for the weekend. I'm happy to go first, which is why I wanted to go first in the Swinton, because it was very obvious that Washington's going to win the Swinton. I am pretty confident, as you can see, which is why the nap. He's definitely in the first 5. Obviously, please gamble responsibly, but Washington wins the Swinton. Daryl, what's your best bet of the weekend? Your nap?
Oh, well, I can't say Angel Blur now because I don't know the prices. There is a nice one running in the 210 as well at Haydock. It's called Florida, but again, I really like the chance of that horse on the handicap debut, but no prices. So I'm going to go for Spycatcher in the Victoria Cup at Ascot. A lump around top weight and a low draw.
Oh, I like it. And Andrew, can you outdo that nap by going for the biggest handicap of the weekend?
No, I'll go for a 4-runner race in the hope of getting one in the frame. Run to Freedom in the 245 at Haydock. I mean, I'd say we've not seen the prices, but I'm guessing we're going to be looking at sort of 64 on creative force and getting a good price about Rugby Freedom.
Superb. So that is the naps in. Selections from everybody in the show will be put up as a visual at the end of this video. So I'd like to thank again Bet UK for sponsoring. I'd like to thank you guys both for taking your time to run us through your thoughts, giving us your selections. And most importantly, I'd like to thank you, the viewers, each and every one of you, for your support, your likes, your comments, and your time. So as again, all the bets will be posted up straight after this. Good luck if you want to follow us in. Be lucky, and we will see you again next week.